Get ready for Netflix's gripping new medical drama, Pulse. Set in a cutting-edge Miami trauma center, third-year resident Dr. Danny Sims is unexpectedly thrust into a promotion when beloved chief resident Dr. Xander Phillips gets suspended. Then, with the emotional and physical stakes at their highest, a storm will push the hospital and its residents to their limits. Witness how life can change in a heartbeat when you're operating under pressure. Watch Pulse April 3rd, only on Netflix.
This is the Stone Zone with Roger Stone.
Welcome. You are entering the Stone Zone, and tonight we're going to do something we haven't done before. We're going to try to take as many of your calls as we possibly can. That number, 800-848-9222, 800-848-9222. Our most loyal listeners always complain that we don't take enough calls. We try to squeeze in as many of them as we possibly can, but I'm inviting you now to call us at 800-848-9222. I'm going to start this off with some questions we got via the internet. Aldo in Cherry Hill, New Jersey says, I saw Steve Bannon on with Chris Cuomo, and he said that Trump was running again in 2028. I love this idea, but isn't that unconstitutional? Aldo, thanks for your question. Yes, indeed, the U.S. Constitution does not allow that. After Franklin Roosevelt served 4 terms, I believe it was the 22nd Amendment was passed. And by the way, a constitutional amendment requires 2/3 of the Congress and 3/4 of the states for ratification. No small task, no low barrier. But the Constitution is very clear. No person may be elected for more than 2 4-year terms. And therefore, in order for Donald Trump to run again, we have to have a constitutional amendment. Again, that would require 2/3 of the Congress and ratification by 3/4 of the states. I love Donald Trump, and at the end of this term, I'd love to see him serve another term, but I don't see the Constitution being changed. So I have to assume that Steve Bannon is trolling. I'm sure he got a lot of clicks out of that, but I don't think it's political reality. Again, we're taking your calls at 800-848-9222, 800-848-9222. Tim from Alexandria, Virginia, emails this question. Yesterday, you raised the question of Susan Monterez, who Donald Trump appointed to head the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, and I read that she is a supporter of mandatory vaccinations. Why would Trump and Robert Kennedy appoint such a woman? You know, after last night's show, I texted Robert Kennedy directly to ask him, and folks, this is all a giant and completely honest misunderstanding. In a previous position, in a previous administration, Dr. Susan Monterez had essentially an email that was not hers but belonged to the CDC, and therefore it auto-generated pro-vaccination content. She is not an advocate for mandatory vaccination. She's not an advocate for childhood or 6-month-old babies. So words got attributed to her that she never said, that she never authorized, and that she never approved. I'm very relieved to hear this, frankly, and I appreciate Secretary Kennedy answering our question. If you're just tuning in, this is the Stone Zone, and we're taking your calls at 800-848-9222, 800-848-9222. Here is Alex from Bala Cynwyd, Pennsylvania, says, will J.D. Vance succeed Donald Trump as president? Well, in politics, a week is a lifetime, and we're not even a year into the president's first term. I did notice that in a press conference recently, when the president was asked that question, he gave what we call the full Eisenhower. In other words, when they asked Dwight Eisenhower, who, by the way, was one of our greatest presidents. Under Dwight Eisenhower, we had unprecedented peace and prosperity, ended the conflict in Korea. We weren't allowed to call it a war. and also the last president to have a balanced federal budget and no deficit. Anyway, Ike was a great president, but when he was asked whether Nixon would succeed him, he basically punted and said, well, we'll see. And then very famously, when he was asked, could you name any presidential decision in which Vice President Nixon had an outsized role or responsibility, and Eisenhower said, well, give me a week and I'll think about it, which was very damaging to Vice President Nixon in his presidential campaign against John Kennedy in 1960. In our party, of course, in the Republican Party, hegemony is very importantly the natural order of things. I think the president gave the right answer, which is let's see how J.D. Vance does. So far, I think he's doing great. He really doesn't get credit in these confirmation fights in the Senate, whether it is Robert Kennedy or Tulsi Gabbard or Kash Patel or Scott Bessent, who could be, by the way, the greatest Secretary of the Treasury since Alexander Hamilton. But the guy counting votes, the guy behind the scenes figuring out who's solid, who's shaky, who needs to be spoken to, and who the nominees need to go sit down with, the guy who quarterbacked all those confirmations was J.D. Vance. It wasn't looking for credit. He wasn't looking for the spotlight, but he did a phenomenal job. I think that given the natural order of things, he would certainly be the front runner for the Republican nomination. And whether it's George H.W. Bush or Richard Milhous Nixon, we have a great tendency to nominate those who serve as vice president. We really kind of believe on that. Peter in New Jersey, you have a thought. Welcome to the Stone Zone.
Hey, how you doing, Roger? Yeah, Peter from New Jersey. I would just want to mention, Roger, I heard, you talk about always Richard Nixon all the time. And it's funny, I'm 50 years old right now, but when I was like 24, 25-ish, I worked for a independent contractor delivering packages. And I was in my father's Ford Escort, believe it or not, back in those days, little 4-cylinders, really good gas mileage. And I was looking for a house in Saddle River, and I picked the wrong road. So I pulled up, I pulled down the street, and there's a big cul-de-sac. And at in the middle of the road in this cul-de-sac, there was a tall guy with a fedora on, and he was walking this little poodle. And it was like Saturday morning or something, and it just rained or it just drizzled, and I had my window open, and I go around this bend slowly, and this guy, and then he turns and looks right at me because I have my window open, and I smiled at him, and he smiled, and I'm like, hey, how you doing? It looks like he was like my uncle or something, And I was looking for the house, and it wasn't the house, so I smiled, and I just drove away, and at the end of the street, I said, I think that was one of the ex-presidents of the United States.
Yeah, that was that was President Nixon walking his dog Brownie.
Brownie, wow. Brownie. It was like a little poodle, and he was like a really tall guy, so he really stood out,
Yeah, no, it's a great story, Peter. Thank you for calling. Of course, Richard Nixon's political career was saved by a dog. You might remember when he was nominated for vice president in 1952, there were allegations that he had a secret fund financed by multimillionaires that kept he and his wife in a style that they could not afford on the public payroll. It was a canard. It was promulgated. The story came from the New York Post, the old New York Post, then owned by Dorothy Schiff. And there was a drumbeat of Republicans, including New York Governor Tom Dewey, beginning to demand that Nixon withdraw from the ticket or that Eisenhower drop him from the ticket so as not to stop the chances of the election of the first Republican president in many decades. Nixon made a canny decision to take his case directly to the people. So rather than submit his fate to General Eisenhower, he very famously went to a TV studio in Los Angeles and did a live half-hour broadcast in which he laid out the facts of the matter and very famously said, and there's one other thing he said, we did get a gift. It was a Cocker Spaniel named Checkers. A man sent it all the way from Texas. And I want to say right now, no matter what anybody says about it, the kids love that dog, and we're keeping that dog. schmaltzy, yes, but it electrified the country. The Eisenhower and the Republicans were inundated with telegrams and messages saying keep Nixon. The Eisenhower-Nixon team went up in the polls, and Nixon saved his career. Peter, thanks for calling. Let's see, Stephen in Westchester. Stephen, what's on your mind?
Yes, hi. I want to ask you a question about Donald Trump ran on the ticket that he's going to make the prices cheaper for the regular American in the groceries. So I see him making tariffs which will make the economy more growth, like he says, but I don't see it breaking the prices in the grocery.
Well, actually, I checked this morning. The price of a dozen eggs went from $8 to $5.50. The price of a gallon of home heating oil went down, I think, 42%, 42 cents. The cost of a gallon of gasoline went down 31%. So I do think we're still in Biden's economy. We're still suffering the effects of the massive spending and the massive printing of money. I mean, the Federal Reserve just prints money like there is no tomorrow. So I still don't think it's so early that we can call this Trump's economy. About a year in, either it is or it isn't. Renewing the tax cuts is a key element to revitalizing the economy. The idea that the tax cuts under Trump or the tax cuts under Kennedy or the tax cuts under Reagan caused the deficits or caused inflation is unfortunately just inaccurate. If you go back and look, actually, you'll see that federal revenues actually spiked after every one of those federal tax cuts. Now, they are not tax cuts for the rich. That is baloney. They're across-the-board tax cuts. In other words, every American, regardless of income bracket, got a tax cut from Donald Trump. If you could cut taxes again, or in this case, renew the tax cuts, and then you could actually effectuate the savings that Elon Musk is finding through Doge, which are literally not millions, not billions, but trillions of dollars. If you could do those two things simultaneously, I think you would have a boom economy by the time we get to the midterm elections. The other key, of course, is to bring down energy prices, but drill, baby, drill is one of the key elements of Trump's program, and I think that is happening as we speak. The Biden administration, before the election, had actually began giving out drilling permits for natural gas and oil because they had so stalled their own economy with their anti-fossil fuel programs. But Trump understands that low gasoline prices, low oil prices, low fuel prices are the absolute cornerstone to a booming economy. And candidly, our control in the U.S. House of Representatives, the Republican control, is so narrow. I don't know that it is an accurate reflection of where the country is. I mean, Trump did win the popular vote, and he also won all 7 swing states. Very hard for me to believe, for example, that he won Arizona, but the U.S. Senate candidate in Arizona, Kari Lake, was defeated. It's almost antithetical to reason when you try to go do the math. That's why I was glad to see him finally move for paper ballots and to have our elections on one day, so we're not counting votes 3 weeks after the election. You're tuned in to the Stone Zone here on the Red Apple Audio Networks. Our call-in number, 800-848-9222, 800-848-9222. And when we come back, we'll take more of your questions. I see I've got questions about UFOs. I've got questions about, oh, this is a good one. How much sleep does Donald Trump actually get each day? We'll be right back. Whatever you do, don't touch that dial. And we're back. I'm Roger Stone on the phone. We're taking your calls at 800-848-9222. Kathleen in Westchester, you have a question. Welcome to the Stone Zone, Kathleen.
Hi, Roger. Thanks for taking my call. I just wanted to see if you knew anything about the Association of Rockefeller. And back in the World War II time, they had an alliance called the Drug Alliance with a company in Germany that ultimately was related to Bayer, which is Bayer-Aspirin, and related to Rockefeller. And they actually produced the gas that was used for the gas chambers in the concentration camp. And go forward to today, they are involved with backing the anti-Israel demonstrations. You look on their website and you'll see they're all pro-justice.
Yes, I have read about this, and I think everything you said is accurate. A number of these German-based corporations later do business in the United States and have some very, very questionable connections. Essentially, the Rockefellers hijacked the entire medical industry, our medical industrial complex, we call it, and this mentality that everything that's wrong with you can be solved by simply taking this pill is not accurate. For many decades, I have practiced Eastern medicine, acupuncture, herbs, breathing exercises, and it has kept me pretty fit. So Eastern medicine is thousands of years old. Western medicine, as mandated by the Rockefellers, is only a couple hundred years old. I'm not saying, by the way, if you don't feel well, you shouldn't go to your doctor. I believe in medical freedom. I believe in health freedom. I believe that it should be up to you to make those decisions. But at the same time, I don't buy this ethos that everything that's wrong with you can be solved by taking this extremely expensive little pill. We'll be back in the Stone Zone taking your calls on the other side. That number, 800-848-9222, whether it's news, politics, style, culture, whatever you want to talk about, please call us, 800-848-9222. We'll be right back. And we're back in the Stone Zone. This is a segment we call Roger Stone on the Phone. President Donald Trump announced today that he was withdrawing the nomination of Congresswoman Elise Stefanik from New York's 21st District, that's up there by the Canadian border, to be our ambassador to the United Nations. I see Regina in Huntington calls in. Regina, you have a comment or a question? All right. Let me speak to this question. I think that the president made this decision because the Republican margin in the House is so narrow. What we see in the polling is a phenomenon now in which Democrats who are all cranked up. There we go, Regina. You're with us now?
Yes, and I just want to say it is a pleasure to be talking to you. You are my hero. You are everyone's hero. They trashed you so bad, but guess what? Not true. So thank you so much for everything you have done, and let's go. I heard about Elise today. I was just a little confused because I'm working, but I'm here now. Let me have it. What do you got?
Let me explain it. So what we have going on in the country in these special elections, there was one in Pennsylvania that the Republicans surprisingly lost outside of Lancaster. It was a state Senate seat. The polling in those two North Florida districts showed that Democrats in a special election situation in which there's always very light voting are more motivated to turn out because they're furious that Donald Trump is actually executing and implementing his agenda. So they're very angry about DOGE. See, they like, I guess, waste, fraud, and corruption. They think the open border is a good thing, I guess. They think we ought to continue this endless war between Ukraine and Russia, and you and I should pay for it. So Democrats are highly motivated, where Republicans are kind of fat and happy. Republican voters kind of look at how great Donald Trump is doing and how he's keeping all of his promises, and they think that the battle is won, and therefore they are less likely to turn out. And special elections are unique, particularly in New York State, where there is no primary. party leaders of the Republican, Conservative, and Democrat Party choose the nominee. The voters do not choose the nominee. And polling in North Florida shows that the Matt Gaetz district is probably safe, but that the other district, I think it's the 6th district, this is the seat of Mike Waltz, is competitive, which it should not be. It's only competitive because of who turns out in a special election. So I think a hard look at the New York district indicated that this could be uphill for the Republicans, that Elise Stefanik could easily get reelected there, but putting that seat at risk right now risks the entire House majority, and that we cannot do. So the president, who shares my extremely high regard for Elise Stefanik, because she's a fighter, she is a real fighter, said that he would temporarily, I think, withdraw her nomination to be ambassador to the UN so as not to risk that seat, so as not to risk the majority. This is a very selfless act by Elise Stefanik of stepping aside, at least temporarily. I predict great things for her anyway. She could be a candidate for governor. She could be someday certainly will be in the cabinet. She could someday be vice president. I think she could be one of our first women presidents, although I'm a big Tulsi Gabbard fan as well. But that's the backstory on why the president decided to withdraw this nomination. Regina, thanks so much for your call. I have an email message from Mildred. Mildred is in, she's outside of Newark, New Jersey. She says she is buying a suit for her grandson. He has just gotten his first job, which requires him to wear a suit. Her question is, cuffs or no cuffs? Excellent question. Now, on the one hand, it's an aesthetic question. It's a matter of personal choice. But on the other hand, the purpose of the cuff, also known as a rain catcher, at the bottom of your trouser leg is to weigh down the trouser, pardon me, so that it hangs properly. Now, the cuff can be 2 inches, it can be 1.5 inches. Either one is appropriate, but it will make particularly with a lighter fabric, will make the trouser hang properly. There's an old saying that a proper trouser begins at the shoulder. That's because I wear braces, sometimes called suspenders. But I would, all things being equal, I would go with the cuffs, Mildred. But thank you very much for your question. Let's see. Chris in Bethpage, you've been waiting quite a while. Chris, welcome to the Stone Zone.
Hey, Roger. I was just curious, now that the Dems are making hay with this crazy, Houthi attack, it was leaked, and this is all that going on, do you know what ever became of the biggest leak, which was the overturning of Roe versus Wade before the midterm elections, which averted a red wave, which was going to happen? That wasn't supposed to be released till after the election. Who leaked it, and is Kash Patel looking into this? I'm still furious over that. I never got to the bottom of it.
It's an excellent question. I don't know the answer to it. It would be chasing the horse or closing the barn door after the horse has already escaped. But you're absolutely right. I do think that the leaking of that was either done to prevent it from happening, hoping that perhaps the court would lose their nerve, or to try to affect the elections, which it most certainly temporarily did. But there's also the fake narrative of the left, which is that Donald Trump and the Republicans outlawed abortion. They want to outlaw abortion, which is, of course, not true. What our position is that this is a decision that should be left to the states. I think Roe v. Wade was wrongly decided to begin with. There's a great movie, by the way, called Roe v. Wade, produced by my good friend Nick Loeb. I love it because I had a small part in it. I got to play a Washington Post reporter. And I think I nailed it. I'm as sleazy and dishonest as you could possibly be. I think I really captured the role. But Chris, thank you so much for your question. Lee from New Jersey, you've been waiting. You want to talk about the tax bill? Lee, are you with us? All right, we will move on. I was in a restaurant today. A guy came up to me and said, "Hey, Stone, where's that crypto I bought from you on Facebook? Well, when are you going to send it to me?" And I said, "Pardon me?" He said, "Yeah, the crypto that I bought from you on Facebook." Folks, I'm not on Facebook. if you're following a Roger Stone on Facebook, that is not me. I'm actually banned for life on Facebook and on Instagram. They don't really give you a reason. This is a vestige of the 2017 period where if you were a Trump supporter, you needed to be censored. You need to become a non-person. But there are a number of unscrupulous people who pretend to be me on X, which used to be called Twitter, pretend to be me on Facebook. There's even a few who pretend to be on Instagram. None of them are me. I am on X at Roger J. Stone Jr., Roger J. Stone Jr. I'm over there at True Social, too, as Real Roger Stone. I really love True Social. That's the social media platform owned by the president. It's a great way to connect with other MAGA supporters. It's a vibrant community over there. I like both of them. I don't know if I could ever go back to Facebook, but folks, don't get bamboozled and don't get conned and don't send your money to anybody claiming to be Roger Stone because, well, I'm not on Facebook and that is not me. By the way, when I have my lawyers contact the Meta company and ask them to please take these profiles down, it takes them a long time to act, and then when they do act, they take them down, and they just pop up again with a slight, variance in your name. So you become Roger J.J. Stone Jr., and they're still conning people. Folks, don't get conned. Let's see. We're taking your calls, by the way, still at 800-848-9222, 800-848-9222. Bob from New Jersey, you have a comment.
How you doing tonight, Roger? You're a great American. We appreciate everything you do for us. Yeah, I wanted to talk about Social Security, with the cost of living. There's been talk for years that they're going to raise our Social Security. You think that's going to happen?
I do not think it's going to happen. I think it is a flag waved by the Democrats in every election. Just in the last week, we had Chuck Schumer saying that Trump plans to cut Social Security benefits. We had AOC saying it. They trot out this old saw every 2 years or every 4 years. Since getting into politics, Trump has always been very clear that Social Security is a sacred trust. People paid into it, and that they're not going to cut Social Security benefits. That is fraud. Now, are there long-term solvency issues? There are, but it's interesting that Joe Biden took credit for a cost of living increase in Social Security benefits that was actually formulated and signed into law by one Richard M. Nixon. So there's a lot of politics around this issue, and you got to be very careful about what you take to be real. We love free speech, but not all of the speakers are telling the truth. Jim from upstate New York, what's on your mind?
Hi, Roger. I love the show. I love your perspective on everything. You know what I really do love the most, though, is when you talk about your faith, and how important it is into your life. And I really do believe that President Trump has the full armor of God, that God's led him to this, protected him during the assassination attempts, protected you, and, everyone's walked a wilder life when they were younger, including me, and you realize what's so important in life, and that this life is so temporary compared to eternity. And honestly, I feel like the last administration, it was like they were like demonic looters in the White House, trying to steal everything that this country was given by God from its inception.
Yeah, I appreciate your call and your thoughts. People make fun of this. I mean, yes, I am redeemed in the blood of the cross. They say that there are no atheists in foxholes. And yes, it is absolutely true that I wandered very far from the Lord when I was much younger, and I did some truly wild and crazy things. But that was then and not today. And when I was redeemed, when I went back to church, when I confessed my sins, which is what is required for a Christian, the Washington Monthly mocked me. Oh, sure, Roger Stone, this is another dirty trick. What a head fake and so on. I don't really care what they think, in all honesty. I only care what he thinks, the big man. And how everybody chooses to follow God is up to them. I do talk about it because I've had 5 miracles in my own life. My wife was diagnosed with very aggressive stage 4 cancer right after I was pardoned from the Russian collusion hoax, in which finally, after a lawsuit by BuzzFeed against the U.S. Department of Justice, they were forced to release Robert Mueller's long-hidden report, which had redacted all the sections about me, and even Mueller admitted that he had found no evidence of Russian collusion, WikiLeaks collaboration, or any other crime on my part. That is, of course, a miracle that Donald Trump saw that they were merely trying to pressure me based on false allegations in order to get me to testify falsely against him. First of all, I wouldn't do it as a matter of principle, but secondarily, I had taken multiple polygraph tests, multiple lie detector tests on each one of these key points, and it would have been a lie. They wanted me to sign a lie. They wanted me to testify to a lie, and I would not do it. So, look, the fact that I'm with you tonight, the fact that I did not die of COVID in some dank Georgia prison, the fact that my wife is alive and well and thriving and cancer-free, these are miracles that I attribute to God Almighty, and I'm not ashamed to say it. You disagree with me you want. You can choose to believe anything you want. You can be whatever faith you want to be, but I'm going to continue to talk about the Almighty and the role that it has played in my life. I mean, I was in a horrific car accident the day after the 22 election in Memphis. I was going to see Mike Lindell, and a car came barreling through the intersection and T-boned the car I was riding in, totaled the car. The two security guys riding me were both badly injured. It happened in a flash of a second, but I walked away without a scratch. And as soon as I could get to a safe place, I got down on my knees and I thanked God, because that is an act of God. And I've had several similar miracles in my life. So I really appreciate your call, Jim. It's very thoughtful and very kind, and God bless you for calling. Folks, we're in the Stone Zone here. We're taking your calls at 800-848-9222, 848-922. Again, 800-848-9222. I'm Roger Stone. You're in the zone, and, well, we'll be right back. Take a few more of your calls, whether it is news, politics, history, food, style, or culture. We'll take your calls here in the Stone Zone. We'll be right back. And we're back in the zone, the Stone Zone, that is. Evan in New Jersey, you have a call. By the way, that number, 800-848-9222, 800-848-9222. Evan, welcome into the zone.
Hey, Roger. Thank you so much for taking my call. Big fan of yours. I was curious on a couple things, like, I remember reading about how China had acquired land. I don't know how. I think a lot of Americans are concerned, but it's something that's not really covered in the news, how they've acquired some farmland in the Midwest and all that. And I think you sometimes see maps of it, but I was curious what your thoughts and what were the measures that, like, we would be able to reacquire that. Is that something that's on Trump's map? Is that even a threat to America at this time? I'm just curious. Yeah.
It's an excellent question. I think you're really understating it. The Chinese, or people fronting for them, Chinese nationals, because everything there really belongs to the party, have acquired thousands and thousands of prime ranch land and farmland across the United States. They've also bought a lot of utilities like ports, airports, toll roads, bridges, tunnels, and so on. In Canada, you cannot purchase land unless you are a Canadian. If you're a Chinese, or if you're an American for that matter, you're not permitted to buy land. The U.S. Agriculture Department in the last year of Joe Biden's presidency said that the Chinese only had 360 acres of farmland in the United States. I happen to know that they have 380,000 acres, probably 360,000 acres nationwide. I happen to know that they have 380,000 acres in Oklahoma alone. That's just one state. So the Agriculture Department has been understating this number. This is very simple. We need to pass a law by both houses of Congress, and the president needs to sign it, saying that you cannot purchase land in the United States if you are a Chinese communist or somebody who is fronting for the Chinese communists. It's really that simple. It's just a matter of will. I've seen polling on this. The American people are overwhelmingly for it, a ban on the Chinese buying up our country. Look, they have already infected business. They own some of the largest blue chip companies in the country. They're burrowed into academia. They're burrowed into all of our institutions. They're certainly burrowed into our universities. At a certain point, it is their plan to take over without firing a shot. That is the truth, the stone cold truth for that matter. So you raise an excellent issue, and it is very understated, if anything at all. I did get this email which I have to respond to very quickly. Someone says, I saw you on the internet saying that John F. Kennedy was addicted to methamphetamine. Are you out of your mind? No, actually, John F. Kennedy was being treated by Dr. Max Jacobson, who was a New York practitioner, who was treating all the beautiful people of the day, Frank Sinatra and Maria Calais and Leonard Bernstein, Nelson Rockefeller and others. And he was giving all of his patients a proprietary early blend of methamphetamine. He told them that it was vitamins and enzymes. They all knew it made them feel much better. But he was very definitely attending President John F. Kennedy and as well as Jackie Kennedy. Why is this significant? I believe it is one of the arguments that was used to rationalize his murder by the deep state, by the political establishment. Good God, the man is a drug addict and he could give away the store to Nikita Khrushchev. That was the argument. So there's a great book about this called Dr. Feelgood, Dr. Max Jacobson. You can look it up yourself. I'm right on the money on this issue. As far as the JFK assassination records are concerned, I think that there are still deep state bureaucrats who are working to evade the president's full disclosure order, and we have not seen everything we need to see. We're running out of time here on the Stone Zone. Thank you for calling in. Thank you for joining us. Until we meet again, God bless you and Godspeed. And yes, God bless America.
Greg Kelly here with an urgent retirement warning. President Trump's return is set to usher in a new golden age, but growing trade tensions and China's ruthless attack on the dollar have rattled the markets. That's why Warren Buffett just dumped $133 billion in stocks. And so too have Jeff Bezos, Larry Page, and even Jamie Dimon, CEO of the world's largest bank. That's why thousands of informed IRA and 401k savers are now shielding their savings with gold. And the experts at Colonial Metals Group are the only folks I trust to help you to do the exact same thing, especially now after Rich Dad Poor Dad author Robert Kiyosaki warned of a coming market crash. So visit freegoldguide.com/Kelly or call 800-655-5186. You'll get a free gold guide on how to bulletproof your wealth with gold tax-free. Plus, see if you qualify for a free home safe and as much as $7,500 in free silver. Once again, that's freegoldguide.com/Kelly.